This show is a part of the podcast network of the Walled Garden Philosophical Society, an international community of philosophers and seekers dedicated to the pursuit of truth, wisdom, virtue, and the divine, wherever they may be found. To find out more, go to thewalledgarden.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Searching with Seneca. This will just be a quick episode. I'm just going to be reading verse number 9 of Seneca's 29th letter on the critical condition of Marcellinus, or Marcellinus, depending on which interpretation you've clung to in my own readings. And in this verse, Seneca is going on after his kind of, discussion about Marcellinus and about how he's not necessarily the best student, but nonetheless he's going to have faith or, hope that Marcellinus can be reformed or at least have some respite from his troubled soul. And so now he's just giving us a few final thoughts, before he gives us his quote from Epicurus for the letter. And I just think that these thoughts that he gives are really, really beautiful. And you can almost get this sense from what he's writing that he is writing to himself. This was a period of his life where he certainly would have had many threats to his own life in terms of, leaving public life behind, which is not an easy thing to do in the Roman Empire, especially for somebody who like Seneca, who was very, very close, the closest person to Nero, right? And Nero is this tyrannical emperor who, he's going to get suspicious if his, right-hand man decides that he's going to remove himself from public life. And so you'll catch this in Seneca's writings in this verse, that he's kind of talking about, having courage in face of all these people who potentially pose a threat. So anyway, I'm going to read this and then we'll see if there's anything else that we need to take away from it. So he says, quote, "So while I prepare myself to deal with Marcellinus, do you, in the meantime, who are able and who understand whence and whither you have made your way, and who for that reason have an inkling of the distance yet to go, regulate your character, rouse your courage, and stand firm in the face of things which have terrified you. Do not count the number of those who inspire fear in you. Would you not regard as foolish one who was afraid of a multitude in a place where only one at a time could pass? Just so, there are not many who have access to you to slay you, though there are many who threaten you with death. Nature has so ordered it that, as only one has given you life, so only one can take it away." End quote. So I really love these verses, don't they inspire you and call you to greater courage in your life? Look at what he says. He says, regulate your character, right? Rouse your courage, stand firm in the face of things which have terrified you. You can see that what he's trying to do here, he's almost trying to pump himself up perhaps, or give him a little bit of that philosophical motivation, right? I say philosophical motivation because philosophy implies that he's also trying to aim at the right things, right? And not just motivation towards any old aim. And there's something that he says here that you kind of have to think about for a bit. Well, there's a few things in here. He says, do you in the meantime, who are able and who understand whence and whither you have made your way, and who for that reason have an inkling of the distance yet to go. So I wonder if what Seneca is talking about here is he's kind of on this philosophical journey and he feels like he's finally making progress towards something, right? Like he's really making progress in the soul. He's curing himself of his own ailments, right? And I just wonder, when he talks about having only an inkling of the distance yet to go, we know that Seneca's talked in previous letters about how, when you're on a journey, there should be a destination. He feels as though there's a destination of philosophy. Obviously we could say that it's wisdom or it's virtue. Living in agreement with nature is obviously the destination of the Stoic philosophy. And so Seneca is saying, I'm almost there, and of course he's speaking to Lucilius here, and so then you have that open debate like we always have here, which is, was he speaking to Lucilius or was he speaking from his soul to his soul, right? Certainly Seneca's life experience certainly matches up with some of the writings in here where he's kind of, you could see him as talking to himself. And so he's saying, we're close, right? And so have courage, right? Work on your character. Don't be afraid of all these people who are threatening you. And he makes this really, really interesting argument about, Seneca would have been somebody who he could have had reasonable fear that a lot of people out there were likely going to be threatening to him or could do harm to him. But the interesting point that he makes here is don't make the mistake of, falling into a fear of the multitudes, the fear of the mob, when only one person at a time can really hurt you. Only one person can enter and really hurt you, right? So you focus on the individual, you focus on a smaller and smaller level so that you don't get overcome by this fear of the multitude. And again, he kind of finishes this verse with that same sentiment by saying that nature has so ordered it that as only one has given you life, so only one will take it away. Right. So again, coming back to these techniques that Seneca is using to give himself courage and strength in this moment in his life, or potentially to give somebody else courage and strength in their life, right? And so we can take that as well. And perhaps I'm misinterpreting these lines. Perhaps there is a deeper meaning to them, but that's certainly what I take away from it at this point. And so I think I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to let those words sink in with you, and this call to regulate your character, to have courage in spite of the many fears that we have in life, and to stand firm, as he says, in the face of things which have terrified you. Good advice for life, because life is a terrifying ordeal for probably most people, I would say. And if you're not terrified, then you might not even be awake. And this certainly calls for courage. So if Seneca could get through this, and if he could find some courage amid all of the terrors that he would have been up against in the Roman Empire, then certainly we can. I'm going to leave it there. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'll talk to you next time.